it's very hard to prove a conspiracy of one and all of this, and it's rarely done. Cassie is not here to prove anything other than the racketeering because she's the co-conspirator.
Real life.
It ain't real life. Just say real life street stars. Know what time it is.
Real life street stars. Let's go. Man, we got my lawyer in the building.
Yeah.
Good to be back.
Real life lawyer.
Come on, man.
And he's about to take us on a journey and a ride and tell us what's really going on in this courtroom with this Diddy situation, man. I don't even know where to start, man. You want to start with, I don't know, where should we start?
You know, man, we can start off with some of the testimony and what has been said either by Cassidy or the male escort. And we can kind of work our way into it. But I'll tell you this. And
Are we doing the recap of the first week?
Yeah.
Okay, because we haven't spoke on it.
Right. We can just talk about it, have a conversation about what you think or what I think took place in that first week. You can ask me questions in regard to that. But I will tell you that the caveat and the thing that you want to use your reels for is Cassidy is not who we think Cassidy is in this trial.
Okay, let's break that down because I've been watching the trial. Right. I've watched every second of this trial. I've gotten everybody's information on this trial. So let's start here, right? We have Cassie on the stand, right? She's pregnant. Mm-hmm. They threatened mistrial because they feel like they're rushing Cassie off the stand. Is this a usual practice where you have a pregnant woman that's testifying where the defense is like, yo, I mean, y'all are kind of rushing us. Why didn't y'all put her first if y'all were going to do that?
You know, you have the right to put your case in whatever order you want. And right now, it's the government's case. And so at first, I was like everyone else, like, why did they put her on first? But now I get it. I think I truly understand. And so I'm hoping that my track record of being 11 for 11 correct on what's happening with the case. I hope I'm keeping my track record intact, but I think I honestly see where the government is going with this.
Got you. Because a lot of people don't, right? A lot of people are like, they keep making her disclose her sexual deviancy, if you will, and they keep talking about abuse. And they're all like, we're trying to tie this into sex trafficking, but we don't see it yet. So where are we missing this? Like,
I think, honestly, the whole thing with the sex and the whole thing with the assault, smoke and mirrors. The prosecutor is basically putting that up and the defense is biting on it and really defending that when that's not really the crux of the matter. So if you look, there are 2 allegations of sex trafficking. There are 2 allegations of sex trafficking. There's the racketeering.
Right.
And then there's 2 other charges. I'm trying to think of what they are.
Somebody look that up real quick.
Real quick. I have them. I have what they are. So it's the 2 allegations of racketeering and then transportation to engage in prostitution. So those is two counts of that. And so you think about it. They didn't really allege that Cassidy was sex trafficked. Right? They didn't really allege that she was brought or prostituted. So
right, because it seems the other way around. It seems like yeah.
So at first I was kind of like, okay, what are they getting at? What is the prosecution really wanting to prove with having her on so early, and why did they put the male escort up first?
Right.
And so I'll tell you right now that the 2 bombshells are later to come with the 2 individuals that they're going to have and come and speak to how they were sex trafficked and how they were transported. How did they get there? Now, you can almost think that the first escort was part of that, right? But he really, in essence, even though sex trafficking, the laws on that are broad, right? They started off in 1909 or 1910. And then they were amended later on, I think in the 80s. But the thing is, they're so broad, he could be basically used to prove sex trafficking, because remember, it was a time that both Diddy and Cassie said, let's bring him to New York. And so they flew him in to New York. Now, as broad as the law is, we could be looking at part of the transportation, part of bringing him in, compensating him to perform a sex act. And so that could be part of it. But the thing is, you really don't need the coercion of the collusion of Cassie or the whole issue with her being beat and traumatized and all of that to prove these cases. So why are you really emphasizing all of this?
Right.
Why? That's the question. Why?
And so the bombshell is this.
RealLyfe Street Stars.
Racketeering requires a conspiracy. And so I was listening to some of the other lawyers and people talk about it, and it's like, well, it's very hard to prove a conspiracy of one and all of this, and it's rarely done. Cassie is not here to prove anything other than the racketeering, because she's the co-conspirator.
Ooh. Let's break that down. She's the co-conspirator. How? Because
She's the co-conspirator because in order for you to have the racketeering portion of it, you have to make an agreement that we're going to commit a crime. And racketeering and conspiracy is different than just conspiracy, because conspiracy usually involves just that one act. Like, we're going to rob this bank. But racketeering and conspiracy means multiple instances of breaking the law for a particular end.
Oh, shit.
The transportation of the prostitutes were part of that. And since I've been on this show, I've always told you that the main thing that'll get you caught up is the transfer of money through wire, Cash App, and some of the other acts, or some of the other means. That all the elements are met. She's the co-conspirator. The crime is prostitution. You can even throw in money laundering if they paid cash, because now you paid someone to commit an illegal act in a means in which it's unrecorded.
And they just up there telling it too. They up there willingly telling it. That's the crazy part.
Because everyone is so confused and so focused in on the sex acts that are happening. Like, we're talking about the peeing. And who did Puffy ask him to pee, or did she ask him to pee?
Right.
We're talking more like my man Iverson said. You're talking about peeing? You're talking about peeing? We're on trial for racketeering, and you're talking sex trafficking, and you're talking about peeing? Because that whole incident, that whole situation is meant to really potentially take the defense off their game. And so they're focusing in on, they keep saying it. Yeah, he's a bad guy. And they're more focused on saying, okay, he's a bad guy. He beats women. That's a state crime. We're not in state court. And so that's not the issue. And so she is the co-conspirator. She tells how she went and got the item. She tells about how they recruited them, how they got people in, the acts that took place. So she's laying down she's literally up there ratting on the conspiracy. So she's not the victim. So this is some usual suspect type stuff. And I hope I'm right.
Yeah.
I hope I'm right in this, let me say this. I hope I'm right because I think I understand where the feds are going with this.
Right.
I don't want to see anybody go to jail. Right. But at the same time, I don't want to see anyone get beaten, and I don't want to see anyone trafficked.
Right.
But as a lawyer and being a student of the law, I'm just intrigued by how different lawyers treat treat their cases.
Yeah.
And I think that the feds are actually throwing all of this out there, and everyone is so caught up with the sex acts
Right.
that they're missing the fact that she's basically laying out the conspiracy of the racketeering.
Is peeing on someone assault?
If it's unwanted, if I hit your car and you're in it, I've assaulted you. And so anything that you hit that's connected to someone's body or their body is a form of assault. So if she didn't want to be peed on, yeah. But the crazy thing about it is the escort, who seemed to be extremely credible, right?
Extremely.
Right.
He said, and when asked by the defense, you sure Puffy didn't ask? No, Mr. Combs didn't ask, she asked. And she gave me detail on how she wanted it done. And that's a killer. And so all of us at one point were like, she telling them how to pee on them. That ain't sexual trafficking, and that ain't that. We were right, but we were just looking at the wrong thing.
Right. She's, oh man. So let me ask you, this, right?
Told you I had a bombshell for you.
He threw the grenade, boy. And so I've been watching this case, right? And there's a when you hear some of these people's side, like they'll say, well, isn't she not complicit in some of these acts if she's going back to the guy? For example, she gets beat by Diddy. She goes back and has sex with Diddy. Diddy pushes her, gashes her eye. He then pays for plastic surgery. She then goes back to Diddy. Like at some point, you know, they're going to say grooming, right? But if you're 19, you're an adult. So at what point does age in grooming not match?
So once again, we're going to talk about this, and it's being talked about, but that's not the issue at hand.
Right.
Right? We're talking about how the food was. And everybody's saying good, and I use the plastic fork when we should be talking about the texture,
right,
and the seasoning. Right. But you have to be very careful in that regard, especially dealing with someone who's 19 and someone who is older. And it really goes back to someone's, how should I say, maturity at that point. If you're going to argue that point, according to the law, she's an adult and she can do anything that she wants. So if we're going to say grooming, we have to go back and look at someone's mental state, because on the flip side of that, what about the 19-year-old? I represented a young man. She was 16, and she was a prostitute maybe 2 to 3 years before she even met this guy. She played him. Like she needed someone who was over 21 to get her the things that she needed. And he was naive.
See, and they never talk about that part of the game. That's what I was. That's where I was going with it. Like,
and so she had it down to a science. She would meet a guy, and she would go to 7-Eleven, and she would come out with a wine cooler and cigarettes. Got to be 18 to buy a wine cooler. I mean, cigarettes, and have to be 21 to buy alcohol. Right. But she had an arrangement with the guy at the 7-Eleven. So when you see her come out with that, you automatically say, oh, she look young, but she has these items. I don't really need to ask her for her ID or how old she is, because evidently she's at least 21.
So would that not be coercion the other way?
It don't matter, because it is certain crimes that you commit. Yeah. There are no defenses to. They are what they are. They're statutory. Right. It can't happen.
Even if she hit him with the fake ID.
It can't happen.
It can't happen. You gotta have an ID detector. As a prosecutor, is there something that you would have asked Cassie on the stand that they didn't?
So it's really hard to say that, because we're all getting just bits and pieces of the transcript. And I really, if I was her and I kind of wanted to lay the foundation and really nail it down, I I would have went into details of the transfer of the money. How did he pay him? Which accounts did he potentially pay him for? Did he ever make you pay it?
Right.
And which accounts did you pay from? And when you went shopping for items, where did you get those items from?
Right.
Did he ever give you cash to pay him? And so I would have really focused in on the transactional portion, the transactional portion of it. And they watch, this is the thing, they could bring her back.
Right.
Because they may not want to have her talk about what they're going to have the two alleged victims talk about as far as how they were sex trafficked.
Right.
If the prosecution is not using the first male escort as one of the individuals who were sex trafficked, but I have a sneaking suspicion that it's going to be someone that is going to be more of a victim.
Right. They showed a lot of photos of like the sex photos, pretty much, of going on. Do you think those things will get leaked at all?
At some point, man, you got to think about it. You know, it depends on who Puffy had around him. It depends on who had access to these tapes and videos prior to him getting arrested and prior to the feds coming in and seizing it. And anyone could have, what always ends up happening is someone in your own entourage grabs something either for their own personal use or to use later on.
Right.
And they hold on to it. But I will tell you, if you do leak that, chances are you're going to be charged with a federal crime.
Right.
Shout out RealLyfe Street Starz, nigga. Move. Hey.